Hey, what's up classic movie and TV fans? My name is Rick9G. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be taking a look at bloopers from the iconic 1931 Universal Picture film Dracula. And we're going to get into it because this is the month of the fall season. Halloween is rapidly approaching. I'm kicking off my 9G monster special where I'm going to have a few videos here and there with the horror / Halloween theme. So I hope you enjoy this. This video could be watched during this season or any other season. So either if you've watched the movie or haven't watched the movie, you're going to be able to enjoy this video. Just know that if you haven't seen it, spoilers are in order in regard to some of the things that I may talk about in regards to the bloopers. Let's get to the first one. Now this blooper is going to make you laugh, and it starts out right at the beginning of the movie. In fact, right in the credits, you see the title of the film Dracula and all the important people who had a significant part in making this film, including the president of Universal Studios Pictures, or Universal Pictures at the time, Carl Laemmle. He essentially made what we know as the current Hollywood dynamic, being one of the few presidents. And unfortunately, I wonder who was the person who misspelled president right next to his name, well, just right below his name. I mean, forgetting the letter D in there is a mistake that anyone could make, but who was the person who essentially misspelled the president's name? I'm sure glad I wasn't in the room when they all found out. The film Dracula was one of the most iconic horror films that Universal made. In fact, that any movie studio made at the time, and even today. It has so many really cool moments. There was even a Spanish version that was pretty good. But there are some issues with the movie in itself. Now, while Bela Lugosi was probably the best thing about this movie, a close second, or some people would even argue he was better than Lugosi, that's Dwight Frye, who played Renfield. Now, if we look at the beginning of the film, roughly in the beginning, when he walks up to the front door of Dracula's castle, he's in the courtyard area, and notice that it is midnight. It has to be pretty much pitch black at the time. Now, the only light that we see is coming from the torches, but there is enough light to make him throw a clear shadow on the wall, and the shadow never flickers at all as it would in some type of torchlight. This is, of course, a major blooper, but the reasoning behind that was that there were studio lights that were used during this time to create this effect, but if you were really outside during midnight, that strong shadow would not be there. Now, as we enter into the crypt, or essentially the dungeon area, the underground area of Dracula's castle, you will see where his coffin is, and even the coffins of his wives. And notice you do see other creatures. You see a bee coming out of a small little coffin. You also see opossums and armadillos. Now, why is that a problem? Well, this film took place allegedly in London at one point, but he originally came from Romania, Transylvania area. There are no possums and there are no armadillos in Europe. They're only in North America, which is interesting, and where, of course, was most of this filmed? Yes, in Los Angeles, California, or we can also say Universal City, California. What a major blooper that many people didn't really notice. Now let's talk about some of the indoor scenes where Count Dracula appears as relatively normal and as a human, where people don't really suspect that he's a vampire. Now there's a scene where Dracula says, "My blood now flows through her veins." Now he comes and he walks into the room. He kind of floats in this weird, just really suave, slow way. And as he's walking into the room, check out, I'll point it out to you, the lower right corner of the frame. And you'll see revealed for just a second a big light that is hidden along the floor behind the couch. Now, of course, that light was used to illuminate the scene, but it was briefly caught from the camera. I mean, think about it. No one in 1931 or even at that time would have a big bright light on the floor shining up like that. Now, there's so much information about this that I could go on for roughly 10 minutes about it. It's in regards to cardboard that, yep, you heard it right, cardboard that is attached to lampshades that are seen in the bedroom scene many different times. In fact, you see it about 3 times that I've counted in regards to the film. Now, there is a debate whether this is a blooper or not a blooper, and there's really no consensus. One thing is that there is mention of a dimming arrangement in the actual script, and many people think that this was a way back then that nurses could dim the room for a patient and so forth. We can go back and forth, but let me tell you, it certainly does look like a gigantic blooper with a giant piece of cardboard blocking the light. That looks like something that they would do for movie tricks and so on. So while maybe not officially a blooper, it may very well be a blooper, but there's no consensus as to whether it is a mistake or not. But I decided to throw it in here anyway. Now, I know a lot of you may be asking, why is there a map of London and the lower half of the United Kingdom on screen? Well, let me tell you why. There was a scene where Count Dracula refers to the town of Whitby as being so close to London. Now, this is London right here. I have it marked for you. Let me show you how close it is to Whitby. Well, according to the map, you can see that Whitby is roughly 5 hours from London. So I don't know how close Dracula thought that they were together. Maybe when he turns into that vampire bat, it's really easy for him to get there. But to me, that's quite a distance, and that's definitely a big blooper in this movie. Now let's talk about the penultimate scene of the movie. And this is the one where Dracula strangles Renfield. Now, in this one, there are two versions. There's an uncensored version and a censored version. In the uncensored version, they have certain scenes that were thought too graphic for the time, and there were several copies of how the movie was edited, not one true copy. Now, in that uncensored version that you may or may not have seen, Renfield is screaming when he is strangled. Now, I don't know how it's possible. It has to be some type of magic trick to be able to strangle someone and have them scream. The whole point is that they can't scream. But what's really interesting is if you take a look at the censored version, this actually works because Renfield doesn't scream and you essentially hear silence, which in my opinion is a bit more creepy than hearing the scream during the uncensored version. So let me know which of the versions you heard of, and if you did hear the scream or if you didn't. But if you heard the scream and he was being strangled, then that's of course the big blooper. Well, that's it for this video, classic movie fans. As I mentioned, I cover classic TV shows and movies with over 1,400 videos. You can find something that you can enjoy and so much more. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already to become part of the family so that it can notify you when I post a new video. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for supporting and watching, and most importantly, be hopeful. A big thank you especially to my Diamond tier patrons, Kevin K, David D, Vito L, Sally N, Citizen Kane 359, Ricky, and honorary Patreon Verbal Volley. If you want to become a patron member, links are down below in the description. Thank you.